Yeah, thank you everyone for joining us and welcome to Introduction to Fundraising for Nonprofit Organizations. My name is Liz Tang. I use the pronoun she, her, and I'm the education coordinator for Integral Org. I'll be in the background hosting, monitoring the chat, any sort of tech support. So yeah, without further ado, we do think it's important to acknowledge that what we call Alberta is the traditional and ancestral territory of many peoples presently subject to Treaty 6, 7, and 8, namely the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Kainai, Piikani, Siksika, the Cree, Dene, Sato, Nakota Sioux, Stoney Nakoda, and the Tsuut'ina Nation and the Métis people of Alberta. This includes the Métis settlements and the 6 regions of the Métis Nation of Alberta within the historical Northwest Métis homeland. And we respect the histories, languages, and cultures of First Nation, Métis, Inuit, and all First Peoples of Canada who have lived in and cared for these lands for generations. And we are so grateful for the traditional knowledge keepers and elders who are still with us today, as well as those that have gone before us. And we make this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation and gratitude to those whose territory we reside and work on today. Very pleased to introduce our facilitator today. This is Derek Bechtold, certified fundraising executive, whose career spanning 24 years has had the honor of contributing to a myriad of nonprofits and charities from a multitude of sectors. So this includes, but is very much not limited to Woods Homes, Can Learn Society, In From the Cold, and currently the Brenda Strafford Foundation. All of these agencies have ranged in budgets from $500,000 to $85 million, and the fundraising departments from anywhere from 7 full-time employees to 1-person shops. So over his career, Derek has dabbled in every manner of fund development, from annual giving, major gifts, special events, through to planned giving, and is well versed in high-level strategic development down to the tactical minutiae of fundraising. So you folks are all in great hands today. And with that, let's take it away, Derek. You go ahead.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And thank you everybody for joining today. I really appreciate your attendance and your time today. So what are some of the neat nifty things we're going to look at today? So again, this is sort of a fundraising 101, right? So we're going to first, though, to get an understanding of fundraising 101, we need to sort of look at trends in our nonprofit sector. Right, that'll sort of help us get a good sort of baseline, a good guide where to work from. And then for fundraising 101, we're going to look on our return on investment. What are different mediums and how much do they yield versus how much we put into them, right? From there, we will then be able to look at the asks. So the who, the when, and the how of conducting an ask. We're going to dip into my favoriteest part, and I think the most important, which is stewardship, right? That is the art and science of thanking. And then finally, we're going to be sort of looking at some tools that can help enhance your shop, whether it's a small shop or a larger fundraising shop. Yeah, so if we can go on to the next guy. So looking at the trends and whatnot, I think first we have to look at our industry. And if we go on to the next one, please, Liz. There are a gaggle of myths, really, that surround our industry, misconceptions, that sort of thing. And I think it's important for us to kind of burst some of those myths. So again, we sort of have a level playing field when we know where we're starting from. Myth number 1, okay? And you hear this: we do good work in this sector, right? We're all unique and we're all different and we're all special, right? No, that is wrong. There are 170,000 charitable and nonprofit organizations in Canada. Of that, about 90,000 are registered charities through Canada Revenue Agency. If you look at sort of these stats, little dated, yes, but still it shows just the enormity of our sector in Alberta. And between 2003 and 2018, the population grew by about 39%. On track with that, the same time frame, our nonprofits grew by 35%. So yeah, we is not alone in the sector. We are pretty big and burly. If we can go on to the next one, please. So myth number 2. People want to support us, right? The streets are paved with gold out there, and there's enough money to quite easily go around. That is wrong as well. This is an awesome grant or graph, sorry, from Canada Helps Giving Report 2023. Please, if you haven't been there, visit CanadaHelps.org. They are just a nifty organization. This is really quite startling. It's really showing that we have a have and have not in our sector. Really, in a nutshell, 86% of the charities Canada-wide yield 23% of the fundraising revenue. But on the flip side, 13% of the charities that are out there raise 76% of the fundraising revenue, right? So you're looking at some of the big boys, hospitals, post-secondaries, the larger foundations, that type of thing. So also, according to this report, the vast majority of nonprofits in Canada, 78%, make less than 500 grand a year in revenue. 90% of them employ 10 or fewer full-time staff, and 58% of them are run entirely by volunteers. So again, this is getting a viewpoint of our sector, and that it can be rather sort of difficult to play in this field. So let's take a look at myth number 3. Once we bring on a donor, they're absolutely going to love us to pieces and they will continue to give to us, right? Oh, that is wrong as well. What we're seeing in the fundraising world is that our donor retention is at some of the lowest levels we've ever seen. Quite simply, donor retention is just a measure of how many donors will continue to donate to your organization year over year. As we can see for 2021, it was 49%, very, very low. So that's what that means, is that if you have 2 brand spanking new donors that gave to you this year, statistically one will drop off. Okay, that is a difficult sort of pill to swallow when you're trying to sort of budget and plan out for your fundraising revenue. Obviously, nonprofits that have a higher donor retention rate have long-term supporters that will come back year after year, and thus they're able to better budget for their organizations. We can go on to the next slide. Myth number 4. And we often hear this one. Let's go after corporations, right? They are made and loaded with money, and they're just willing and wanting to give it away, right? Wrong. Now, this slide is quite old, and yet the ratios still remain the same. Still trying to find something that properly show this in its entirety, but I think this is really, really quite telling. Corporations make up a very, very small percentage of overall revenue in Alberta versus, say, government, right? Or even earned income. Earned income is things such as admissions, right? Tuition, performance fees, Girl Scouts, certainly the cookies, and they make enough money off of me. But as you can see, individuals from a purely fundraising point of view are kind of where you will glean your greatest return. And if we can go on to the next slide, please. So this is sort of our 5th and final myth we'll take a look at. The younger generation, right? They are full of piss and vinegar and bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and they certainly will give, right? They are super engaged. Again, Canada Helps came out with this fantastic little graph that proves that just is not the case. We can see that on average, 55 plus donate, almost twice as much as the category of 25 to 34, right? What this graph also sort of shows, unfortunately, is that giving has gone down year after, or for each age group between 2010 and 2020, and it continues to decline. So if we can go on to the next slide, this is such a I really like this quote. This is by the president and CEO of Canada Helps. If you do not change direction, you may end up where you are heading, which is really quite poignant, I think. So let's sort of take this quote and kind of hinge on that and sort of look at, okay, where can we sort of go right now. So if we go to the next slide, please, Liz. And so we saw all of these myths, and the information looked really quite bleak and quite dark, and we're feeling all quite poopy now. So we might as well just pack it in, right, and stop fundraising. No, wrong. That clearly is not the case. I think that there are a number of tools, strategies, and techniques that we can take a look at to really enhance, at a very grassroots level, a successful fundraising program. So let's sort of go over some of those neat, nifty little sort of strategies that we can sort of adopt. So if we're looking at fundraising for 2023 and beyond, this is sort of there's a really neat article on fundraising in terms of what we should sort of focus on our fundraising efforts. And there's a lot of sort of jargon and speak in here. So let's kind of break this down. So if we're looking at people, or caring about your supporters and those around you, really what that's looking at is trying to understand your donors, trying to visit and meet their needs, and thus increase donor retention. Okay. For revenue, oh yes, we need to diversify potential revenue and in terms of moving forward. Also, what that sort of states is look, try different stuff, right? Don't stick with fundraising methods that we keep doing this because this is what we've always done. No. Measure what you are doing and change and adapt and overcome. Mission and operations, giving donors something that they can feel good about. What this really shows, and some of the buzzwords now are show your donors impact. Show them how their contribution of $25 or $25,000 is moving the needle on X, whether it is saving animals, whether it's putting on a outstanding art performance, whether it is mentorship, whether it's dealing with youth at risk, right? How are their dollars making an impact? And you show this through metrics, but also through stories, narrative. And we'll chat a little more about that. Empowering technology, maximize online, maximize your database. Again, and we've heard this forever. Oh my God, if you're not online, and if you're not on social media, yes, absolutely engage in those, but try and take each and every tool that you have and maximize sort of its potential, and then measure it, and then measure how you're doing there. And if you aren't yielding anything, then change and adapt. Same goes with your database. Oh my goodness, a fundraising database, sort of the central nervous system to your fundraising machine. And you have to be able to maximize the potential in your database to grow your program. So if we can look at the next slide here. So if we sort of looked at 2023 and sort of beyond and whatnot, and now we're going to start to talk about fundraising and what we should sort of do. Let's take a look at some of the return on investments for some of the fundraising mediums that we all engage in, or we're thinking about engaging in. This quite often is a startling graph or slide, because quite often people will hear, oh, you know what? We got to have ourselves another gala. Yep, we got to give ourselves a golf tournament. That's going to be the be all and end all. That's going to make us a gaggle of money. As we can clearly see, events, yes, they do raise money. Yes, they are for fundraising, but Christmas cracker, it will cost you 50 cents on the dollar, right? Planned giving quite simply is a strategic and intentional way of leaving a gift in one after their passing. So bequest is the most common, right? So generally speaking, that's 25 cents. It costs you 25 cents to raise $1. By far, the most successful and the highest yield for your return on investment will be through major gifts and through your grant writing. Major gifts, please do not be startled or kind of be scared of that term. A major gift for the University of Calgary might be $50 million. A major gift for, say, a small grassroots charity, Save the Weasel Foundation of South Calgary, might be $500 or $1,000, right? It is a significant donation that is accumulated over 1 year that will have a transformational impact on your organization. And it's really all that is. And grant writing, that is, well, we'll go into that in a bit. If we can go down to the next slide, please, Liz. So this is the 80-20 rule. People know about the Pareto principle. Quite simply, this states that for many of the outcomes that we have, roughly 80% of our consequences come from 20% of the causes therein. Years and years ago in fundraising, we often said that 80% of our funds will come via 20% of our donors. This is actually, the chasm has actually increased, and we are now looking at 5% of our donors will yield 95% of our revenue. Okay, so we'll say that again, 5% of our donors yielding 95% of the dollars that will come in. So if we think about this, right, and if we start to think about, all right, what have we just sort of learned? Who gives? How often do they give? What's sort of the demographic? What are some of the myths and whatnot? We're starting to really kind of nail down where we should be spending our time. And working in small fundraising shops, that's what I always found, is that especially when you're the sole person there, your time and energy must be monitored. I mean, the return on investment for yourself is massive. You must ensure that you are spending your time properly. So looking at all these slides, clearly we can kind of say, okay, it's sort of the individuals, maybe sort of the government, pseudo government, right? But then also major gifts and grants. That's maybe where, as a smaller shop, you can focus your time and energy and effort. So let's start to look at that now. So if we're looking at the ask, you're kind of thinking, okay, Derek, this sounds absolutely neat, nifty, great and groovy, and that's awesome of you. Who is it that we can ask? Well, first let's look at individuals, okay? And you'll often hear that some people say, oh, we should go after Oprah. She's got loads of money, right? Or Mark Zuckerberg. No. Let's be more realistic. Let's tone it down a bit. Who do we have that's closest to our organization, and how can we leverage those people? So we have board members, and those board members are so integral to your organization, and they're passionate about your organization. Do they give? Do they have friends or colleagues that can give? Certainly, our sector is built, the backbone of our sector is volunteers, right? Ask your volunteers. Number one reason why people give, they are asked. Just because someone gives of their time does not mean they will not give of their dollars. Your stakeholders, that can be, oh my gosh, that can be, of course, anywhere from donors, that can be vendors, that can be possibly even sort of clients that can utilize your services, right? Who are your stakeholders? Who are those that are close to you? And then, of course, never ever forget, as we saw in terms of donor retention, which is critical, look at your long-standing donors and how can you engage them on a deeper and a more meaningful level. Next slide, please. Grants. This is something that obviously it's kind of a bit of a showstopper, and people love to submit grants. And oh yes, there's multiple different avenues, and we have all these programs. So okay, well, who is it that we can go after? Well, there's a gaggle of different sort of subsets. So you got your foundations, right? And those can be made up of community foundations, small public or private foundations. There's a few that I listed there. Corporations, of course, I listed some of the big boys there, but please, please, please also consider local. Consider some of the smaller ones that are just up the street from you that are willing to get engaged on a number of different levels. Service clubs. I have been touting this for a long time. I think they are probably one of the most underutilized resources around. There are, just in the Calgary area, there's got to be Christmas crack 25. I would say service clubs, right? You're looking at your Rotary, your Kinsmen, your Lions, your Optimist, Masons. There's a ton of, I mean, you drive into Okotoks, right? And they'll even show the sign. These are the service clubs. Service clubs, their sole purpose is to contribute. When I was part of Kinsmen, our motto was to eat, drink, and give away money. Not necessarily in that order, but you get the idea. So most small areas will have a service club. Seek them out, get them involved. And then, of course, we have sort of pseudo-government. They're really they are actually sort of government, but I call them pseudo-government because they work on a bit of a different playing field. So you have your community initiatives program, your community facility enhancement program. People might sort of say, okay, well, how do I sort of go about finding these, foundations and whatnot? I actually had a volunteer at an agency that I worked at. She was a lovely volunteer. She had a brain injury, so good. I had her on CRA look up each and every private and public foundation there was in Alberta. And this is listed on CRA. It's all public information. And in total, there are 413 public foundations and 761 private foundations in Alberta. And she was going through each and every one of them because she had time to see if there was a match with our organization. So utilize your volunteers for that. If we can go on to the next one. If you are looking at your corporations, awesome. Do they hold any third-party events? Are they willing to? So in Calgary, we have the Scotiabank Marathon, right? But oh, good gravy. We're starting to go after some of our corporations that are longtime supporters of us. Hey, would you like to do a donation drive during your Stampede party? Christmas parties, right? Would you like to have a charitable component to that, right? Don't underestimate what third-party events can do for you. It is a great way to have a close stakeholder or an interested party do fundraising for you. So if we go on to the next circle, so we're talking about sort of the who's, and I think this is very, very important. This is Rosso's concentric circles. This really sort of states, look, go with those individuals that are closest to your core, closest to your mission, and closest to what you do. That's board management, staff and major donors to ask them for money. But then for the circles, it moves out. So always starting with that inner core and then literally start to move out in terms of who you can ask. Let's take a look at next slide. Let's take a look at, oh, sorry, somebody just sort of put in for Kinsmen. Oh yeah, Kinsmen and CF. Absolutely. Yeah, that is a fantastic partnership. Yeah, thanks, Peggy. Agreed. All right, so we have all of these peoples and things that we're going to sort of hit up for cash. How do we prioritize? Well, please ensure that you don't take on all of them at once and set very, very realistic bite-sized goals for yourself. So if we go on to the next one, what I try to do, and even with the smallest of shop, is I try and build out my yearly sort of calendar. Okay, so say you have these foundations and their due date, one's in January and one is in September. Fantastic. You put that literally just on a spreadsheet, and then you project manage, you kind of work backwards. You throw in where your mail out campaigns will go. I like to do mine May, right? And then also December. Let's do a mail out campaign in December. And if we go into the next slide, please. You can then start to fill out some of the other elements of building in when you can contact and communicate with some of your major donors. Maybe in those off months, you might be able to work in a service club or two, of course, sort of finding out when is appropriate to go to them to seek funds. Can you also, though, start to leverage national holidays, right? So at Brenda Strafford Foundation, one of our elements is the prevention of domestic violence. So November is a big month for us because that's family violence prevention month, right? When are the best months to conduct planned giving campaigns? Well, that's February to May, right? Seniors Week, which is another large component of Brenda Strafford Fund, that is in early June. How can you leverage these things? How can you piggyback on these to build momentum for whatever campaign it is that you're sort of working on. If we can go on to the next one, please. This one is pretty nifty as well. So grant writing and asking for cash and whatnot, those are all those very, very active hands-on type of fundraising mediums that you can use. There's also a ton of really kind of almost plug and play, more passive fundraising that one can get involved in, right? If you go on to, Kids Cancer Care, they're very good at this, or In From the Cold in Calgary. They will offer on their website a gaggle of means and avenues by which a donor can contribute. So you can donate a car through Donate a Car Canada, right? And a portion will go back to the charity. With our Heart Home Network, which is a program at Brenda Stafford, we have a list on Amazon. Hi, we have very, very young children at our shelter. Please, would you buy us some diapers? And that will be sent through Amazon, right? There's this purpose reality where you can sort of sign up, and again, you will receive part of the proceeds. Donate with Skip the Depot. I actually chatted with a couple colleagues, and they're at sports places, and they said, "Oh, Derek, do you know we try and actually we try and send out newsletters and really highlight Donate with Skip the Depot in and around the May long weekend, because we know what people do on the May long weekend, right? And we're going to yield more money out of that, right?" Raffle box. That's a really, really interesting one. So if you are a nonprofit or charity in Alberta and you want to just sort of continually hold raffles or 50-50 draws, check out raffle box, right? So again, these are things that can just kind of live on your website, need to sort of update them, update information, but it offers a myriad of different options and opportunities for your donors when they visit you. Okay, so we now have who we might be sort of hitting up for cash. Now let's sort of look at the hows. All right. Anytime you're asking for money, whether it would be from an individual or from a foundation or a service club, you need to be very, very intentional and strategic. Please, you need to thoroughly plan and rehearse what it is that you're going to be doing. Check your work, double check, and then check it again. And especially for grants, some of the horror stories I've heard from some of my colleagues that are in the community investment world, that is sort of the opposite side of the coin of what we're on. Those are the individual corporations that give away money. That I can remember a prime example of an individual that was part of the community investment team at FedEx, and they obviously have a grants program handing out money, and there was a charity that sent theirs in last minute, and they used Purelator. No, don't do that, right? So again, you need to research, but it's these 5 R's that are really, really quite important in terms of the how, that you have to have the right person at your agency, whether that be a volunteer, whether that be your CEO or a board member, right? Asking the right prospect. Are you asking someone that, yes, we mesh and align with you very well? If you are at, say, the Weasel Foundation of South Calgary, and the corporation you're going at has zero to do with animals, probably isn't a good fit, right? What is the right project? Will this project resonate with the donor? Is it the right time? Always ensure that you are asking at the right time, whether that is the individual. Sometimes there is the wrong time to ask them. Maybe there might be some difficult personal things that they're going through, or for a corporation or foundation, they will state, "Hi, it is due on this date." Respect that. And please, Christmas cracker, ask for the right amount. If I am ever in front of a corporate colleague of mine, and we're kibitzing, we're getting along well, and I'll literally say, "What do you think would be a favorable ask? What do you think would sort of be appropriate?" Right? The last thing you want to do is come in asking for the sun, the moon, the stars, and they kind of just look at this proposal and they just file 13. No. So you have to definitely marry all of those, the 5 R's. We can go on to the next one. So this is more particular for sort of if you were asking an individual, whether you're asking an individual for $50,000 or you're asking them for $500, right? Uh, this is a quote that I absolutely, I absolutely love. That if you ask for money, they'll give you advice, and if you ask for advice, they'll give you money, and that is so true. Um, when we say listen, they ask, when you're in there and you're chatting with your prospect or with your donor, um, we have two ears and one mouth. Please use that ratio. Find out what they're hoping to achieve. Find out what their dreams and aspirations are, right? And then that is when, if you come armed with your toolbox and all of your little, your neat little bits and bobs in your toolbox, your facts, your figures, your numbers, your outcomes, your outputs, your stories, your triumphs and your tragedies, emotions, you can therefore cater to what that donor wants to sort of achieve. If we go on to the next slide, please. So if we're starting to sort of look at, the ask, and you've put it out there in terms of, okay, this is how much we're sort of asking for, and whether this is you're asking for 50,000, 500 bucks from an individual, or 50,000, 500 bucks from the service club, foundation, or whatnot. Even if you get a no or a negative outcome, regardless, thank them. Please always thank. Obviously, you'll thank them if they give you a boatload of money, of course. However, I've been on a wonderful, wonderful streak at Brenda Strafford right now of receiving no's. It's ever so good. But no, I will phone up the funder or I'll email them. Oh, hey, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Please, please, please. Is there any chance you could let me know how I could improve this, next time? Everything should be deemed as that learning experience, right? And take it as such. If we go on to the next slide. So this is now where we're starting for the stewardship. And again, this can apply to whether you have received or you have not received the funding. My motto personally is that you cannot properly ask for money unless you can properly thank them. And that doesn't just necessarily mean, that you are fluent in thank you in 6 different languages. No, that means that you can do it authentically, that you can do it with that genuine purpose. But more importantly, thanking can also look like, are you able to report on that which you said you will do? Accountability, transparency, these things are critical. And what we're starting to find, and especially with the AFP Fundraising Effectiveness Report, which they put out these groovy reports, these are literally the top 3 reasons why people will stop giving. You will note financial reasons is far, far lower down in terms of, oh no, that's just sort of too much for me. The top ones is that they weren't thanked, right? Think of yourself. Think of yourself when you've given $25 to a charity that is near and dear to your heart, and then you've received in return nothing. How do you feel? How do you feel as a donor, right? That is the exact same thing on the opposite side. We can go to the next slide, please. So, and this is what I think is the really, really groovy part about, and what I really loved about small nonprofits is how we can combat donor attrition. Donor attrition is the rate at which the number of donors will leave your agency. So it's literally the reverse of donor retention, right? I found that at small shops, it is so easy and so effective to handwrite a card, to pick up the phone and give a call. Obviously, the best one is in person. That's not quite possible on each and every case. But one of the best things I would ever do at an agency is set up a thankathon from board members. Oh my gosh, it was absolutely wonderful. Where I'd sit them down in a room with a gaggle of coffee and some donuts, and I would hand them a stack of thank you cards. Hi, and I'd give a little synopsis about each donor. Please just write a thank you card. The wonderful thing about board members or even volunteers is they ain't paid for the day, right? They're not doing this for the, for the to pay off their mortgage, right? Or anything like this. They're doing it for the love and for the passion. There is something about a handwritten thank you card that is very, very personal for people. If we go now into, so we've looked at sort of the who we're going to ask, we looked at sort of kind of whens, and then how do we sort of do that? What are some of the tools and whatnot for your shop that you can utilize, right? Again, if we're thinking about that one really quite shocking slide that showed that 13% or 13% of the charity in Canada brought in the league best or the most for fundraising dollars. What are some things that you can do on your end? What is it that you need from your side? So a case for support, here's the definition of what a case for support is. Normally, these are, if you look on any post-secondary or foundation or hospital, these are big, burly documents, 15, 16 pages, very glamorous, laminated, bright colors, pretty pictures, the whole bit. If you're able to create just a 2-pager for your board, your staff, for your volunteers, and for your donors, right? And it will pretty much provide in there the essence of what it is that you do. This will help ensure that everybody is on the same page. This will help ensure that everybody knows what angle you're coming at in terms of these are our needs. This is what we need dollars for. This is why we're a groovy organization and why we merit such funding. And everybody can now, you can build in this within your organization. It's called a culture of philanthropy. That notion that everybody can play a role in fundraising in your organization. If we look at the next slide, another tool that we sort of need for our shop are program budgets. And I know you'll kind of go, oh, dear God, Derek, yes, we have a budget. Of course we have a budget. Yes, everybody has a budget. I know that. The thing is, though, it is far, far easier that I've found to sell a project that is tangible, it is smaller, that is real, versus an organizational budget. I've actually had corporate donors say to me, Derek, our small donation would be just a drop in the bucket with, say, a hospital or post-secondary. So we like the smaller organizations because we feel that we're having a larger impact, right? So let's kind of take a look at how you can sort of make a program budget to sell for your shop. I sort of look at, I look at an organization as a big jigsaw puzzle, right? And each and every little sort of program can fit into your overall budget. Say your org is 100 grand. Oh, but Derek, we just have a soup kitchen. We just feed people, right? I mean, there's not, that's our program. Our program is our org. Nay. No. You can then split out, say, lunchtime or evening program. Be sure when you are creating this program that you will build in all elements relative for that program, please. So don't just say, oh, yes, I'll give you an example at my shop. So we have a drumming program and the wonderful recreation managers, sort of sent me this, oh, Derek, we need some funds for our drumming program. Ooh, that's awesome. Very impactful. Love the program. Yeah, oh, yes, and here it is, 7,500. Okay, that is not true. You occupy the huge auditorium at one of our manors. What does that cost? You have 3 staff that go down there that porter our seniors, our residents into there, and then carry on this program. What does that cost? Right? Please do not leave out time, right? So the human resource factor, materials, space, that each and every one of these programs utilize. You should have in there the receptionist because there is nobody more important at your shop that knows everything that's going on, that will greet your clients, right, or your visitors, include what it takes to present this on your website, your program on your website, right? How much does it cost your IT person or you, Mr. Mrs. ED, right, to put something on your website, a bit of your time? Heck, even budget in the executive director or the CEO time, because you're overseeing this program, right? So please don't leave things out of this program or this project you have for your organization. That's the true cost of running a program, as we call it. The next one is, and this one is, and I mentioned this briefly before, your CRM, right, or your customer relations management system. You need a donor database. You need a donor database that is efficient, that is effective, so that you and your fundraising can be efficient and effective. As I said, it is sort of that central nervous system of your entire program. It is also the cornerstone of good fundraising accountability and transparency, because you are therefore able to show that Edith, who gave, Save the Weasel Foundation of South Calgary $25, you can therefore prove, yes, this is what she did, and you can then report back to her exactly what it is that she did. Further, that 80-20 rule that we chatted about, which is actually more like 95-5 now, right? You are able to, with this rich history in your database, be able to sort of see, wow, you see Fred here? He's donated for the past 15 years, $100 every year. I think he's ready for something a little bigger and better, something a little more exciting for himself, right? You were able to sort of glean this important information when you were about to submit an ask to a foundation, to a service club, or go to an individual. Now, there are numerous different types of donor databases out there. The Cadillac version is Razor's Edge. Most post-secondaries, hospitals, they use that, and it is big and burly, and it costs like a Cadillac, no question. There are also, though, some very, very affordable ones that are out there. So if your organization is on TechSoup, awesome. If your organization is not on TechSoup, please look it up. TechSoup is a groovy little kind of umbrella type agency that provides software for very, very, very cheap for registered charities. It's a fantastic organization. You can get Sumac or Donor Perfect through TechSoup. I believe you can also get Keela. I used that for a little bit. Really bare bones, kind of basic, quite easy to learn. I was able to learn it. I ain't none too bright. We've now merged over to Donor Perfect, and the possibilities with this thing are absolutely incredible. In fact, we're starting to get into AI, which is really, really interesting and terribly, terribly exciting. Okay, all of this being said, just some final points. Okay, once you have all this sort of neat, nifty information, please, please, please remember that Rome wasn't built in a day. Okay, neither was a fundraising program. This sucker is going to take time, energy, and effort to start to do. So be gentle on yourself. Next slide. Oh, this is one of my favorite quotes. I love this. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. Yeah, it does. While we have all of these exemplary ideas, fundraising strategies and mediums and whatnot, please pick one that fits you, your culture, right? There are some agencies that do a ton of events. Children's Hospital Foundation, Kids Cancer Care here in Calgary. They're very good. They're very good at what they do, and that works for their organizations. Others, right? It is all about planned giving, major gifts, right? Look at your organization, what works for you, please. Next one. When you pick some sort of fundraising initiative, so say it's direct mail, right? Or say, you know what, we're going to just really go all out on our grant writing. Fantastic. That's awesome. God, please measure it. Please see how you're doing. So right now for our grants, what we're doing is we're tracking not only how many, and these are just KPIs, simple ones, right? How many you write in a year, how many are declined, how many are accepted. But then further, what is the dollar amount? Then we can start to build, benchmarks, baselines, and then we can track that and see how we're doing as our fundraising team at Brenda Stratford. So next one, please. And when you fail, and you'll fail often. If you're like me, you'll fail a gaggle of times. Please fail, right? Learn from it, improvise, adapt, and overcome, right? And that really will be sort of the signature of your program. And then finally, though, next slide. When you succeed, please celebrate, okay? I have at my office a little it's a dog toy, but it's a little squeaky donut, and it's ever so annoying. And anytime we get a major gift, I'll kind of go out in the halls and I'll kind of squeak it, and I'll often have some of our residents kind of look at me and they point and laugh, and it's quite fun. Celebrate those wins, though. Please celebrate those wins. So because you put in a lot of time. Christmas cracker. That was just a gaggle of information on you. I would love if anybody had any questions at all, please.
Thank you so much for that, Derek. It's always fun. No questions in the chat, but we do have some questions from registration. I'm going to start with a pretty general one. This was a comment that noted, larger nonprofits usually have different strategies that go along with their bigger fundraising budgets. But if I'm, say, a smaller organization with a smaller budget, what sorts of strategies should I avoid that might be suggested to bigger nonprofits? Or, yeah.
Right. Excellent. I would definitely go back to that slide that was on the ROI. If you're a one-person shop and you are a small shop, your return on investment is going to be critical, right? I would not take on a golf tournament unless you have a volunteer base that is absolutely spectacular and willing to do everything for you. Don't take that on. I would maybe focus on grants. If you're just literally starting off in fundraising, I would also do, and this is a horrible phrase, and I apologize, I would also do low-hanging fruit. Grants are nice if you can get that win. It is usually a tidy sum of money. As you saw, it costs generally 20 cents on the dollar. But it also is a morale boost, right? You could be at an agency that fundraising. The hell is that? Was bake sales and garage sales, right? They don't sort of fully understand it. But wow, when they see that their local ATB just gave 5,000 or 10,000, wow. That's really awesome. Well done. People get energized. People get excited by that, right? They can sort of see the possibilities and the opportunities. Low-hanging fruit is a very, very horrible term, but I think there is something to building up that sense of confidence that, yeah, you've got this, and that your organization is worthy of the donation. So I think that is what I would do. I would really look to your ROI and start on things that can have a pretty quick yield for yourself.
Great, thank you. And I guess I would like to mention after this question period, we'll have some resources and just some sort of closing up notes that I hope you all stick around for. We have a question in the chat. How would you, so in terms of our program budgets here, place a dollar value on an individual's time? If we could go more into that.
Ooh, okay. One question. Are you talking that individual for, are they volunteering, or are they actually programmatic staff? Staff. So that's what I would, because volunteer. Oh, is that Carrie?
Yeah, Carrie, feel free to unmute if you.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hi, Derek. Yeah, we've excuse me, we've had discussions about this when we're coming up with budgets. So we offer programs as part of our nonprofit. So we have like instructor fees built in, like from their professional, amounts that they usually would charge, sort of thing. But there's a lot of time, volunteer, like our board members, like our board is also volunteer as well. But like we do have like web support and things like that you're talking about. Would we bill like their professional hours, like their professional rate, or is there like a general like $50 an hour that we would build in times the number of hours that people would be doing? Or?
Right. So in terms of actual, what is the dollar value of one volunteer hour?
Yeah.
If that's what I'm hearing you say. Volunteer Canada, you have to root and dig around. I think they have established on their website, and it's always good to, go to sort of the experts in this, $27 an hour. I think that is what they have listed. On that note, and you raise a fascinating point. It is so neat and nifty on your website or in your annual report to say, wow, you know what? We had 500 volunteer hours this year. That is the equivalent of X dollars. Wow,
Okay.
That's an impressive number. That is an impressive number. So I think it is Volunteer Canada. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And would we just, when you're putting in an application, you're breaking down your budget, would you actually state it as volunteer hours, or is there like a thing that grant or funders like to see allotted differently from like instructional time or something like that?
So you could place that into your budget. Again, I think you need to sort of be careful because that is the in-kind that you are getting. So there are some budgets that will say, what are your revenue sources? Cash. What are your in-kind sources?
Okay.
So yes, they offer us product or they offer us services, right? And that's where you can sort of list them in there.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and I guess the other thing with that is I was just looking at the Alberta grants, and they said they, like some of those matching ones where they support some money as long as you have the matching amount. So that was where that kind of in-kind service could come into play too in some ways.
Very, very much so. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Another question from registration, were generally what sorts of steps and strategies might I want to take after a fundraising event? I know we talked a lot about thinking, but is there something different that you generally approach after an event?
Right. So if we're talking an event like such as the gala or golf tournament, we'll say, for instance, do a postmortem. You must. What were your wins? What were your takeaways? What were your losses? What would you improve for next time? That is, sort of one of the, at the organizational level, what I sort of do for an event. Stepping back though, in terms of for the event participants, you gotta thank them. You send out thank you cards. Send out thank you cards, phone calls to your sponsors, maybe sort of meet and greet them, with sort of a total, hey, this is what we yielded. Wow, this is fantastic. Certainly a card or a letter to all the participants, all the sponsors, all of your vendors, because quite often your vendors maybe deal, right? You can never, AFP states that you should generally thank your donors about 7 times in a year. Best practices, that's a lot, right? So yes, so thank you then must do sort of that postmortem. But then after that, this is where you now will start to look at your corporations who are sponsors and go, how else can we engage them? Could we engage them in terms of maybe they'll give us a grant, or maybe they'll give us employee hours, right? What are other ways that we can engage? So follow up with your high-end donors, your sponsors from that event.
Great. Yeah. We had other questions about how to engage your board in fundraising, but I feel like that was mentioned, quite a bit throughout the presentation. Thank you notes, having them, volunteering them for work that would be helpful. Did you want to add anything?
Liz, sorry.
Oh,
yes.
yeah.
Peggy, thank you. Oh,
yes.
You're ever so wonderful, Peggy. Thank you. I tried to find that the other day. Yes, because I've seen that through SIP and CFAP. Because that's the standard I would always use, right? Because they have it based upon unskilled, skilled or professional, right? And then equipment operator. That one I think is great as well. The nice thing about quoting the government is that you really can't go wrong. It's straight from the horse's mouth, right? You're not pulling some numbers out of your bum, right? Like it's like, okay, this is straight from them. I'm getting it from them, right? So that's brilliant, Peggy. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Peggy. Yes. Oh, so anything you'd like to add about, engaging your board in fundraising, or, on the flip side, if you are a board member, other steps you can take to contribute to your organization's fundraising efforts?
Board engagement. Whew. Yeah, that's
big.
That's tricky.
Yeah.
I can remember having a board member who was the CEO of a small oil and gas company at my charity, and he said, Derek, I'm I'm shit at fundraising. I'm horrible at it. I'm like, dude, you're CEO of a small oil and gas company. However, his wife had a stroke, and the thank you card he was able to write. Please remember, fundraising isn't just about going out there, please spend some change. No, it is also that entire sort of evolution of what you're doing with this donor. It's the prospecting, it is the researching, it is the asking, it is the thanking, right? Maybe your board members are fantastic thankers. They might be absolutely exemplary at that. Check that out. Your board members, I had one board member, he never got my name right. Anytime you do an introduction, I was Derek Smith, or I was some other weird sort of name. And my job title. He even made me the executive director one day of the organization. Dude, you're a board member. But the doors he would open, he would literally, he had no fear in terms of going to his colleagues who were vice presidents or CEOs. Yeah, this is Derek Smith. He's the ED of this organization. I went, I'm not the ED. No, I'm middle lower management, dude. But he could open doors, right? So on that board matrix, and I've always said this, we should really not just look at lawyer, accountant, governance, right? All that dry as a popcorn fart sort of stuff. No. Can you thank, right? How are you at research? How are you at opening doors, right? I think those are some really neat things. And another way to engage your board other than just asking.
Great. Okay. Yeah, so I don't have any other questions, and I do want to get us out here on time. So yeah, I would just like to thank everyone so much for your engagement, and Derek, of course, for your time and your great expertise and energy. You know, fundraising is sometimes a daunting topic, but you know, I think talking about our causes in nonprofits is really what got us into the sector to begin with for many of us. So yeah, it's a great fun topic. Actually, we have a new topic coming out. So I know lots of you folks might be interested in a leadership topic. This is for folks in leadership roles at any level in your organization. This is a similar formatted workshop to this one. So it'll be a free 1 hour session in about a month. And it's just about what we kind of our outlook on leadership and playing that role, developing leadership within yourself, your organization, and in the broader community. So do check that out. You can register for that in the same way you register for this one. And yeah, if your organization does need any more in-depth help, maybe it's an in-house presentation or some strategic planning, bylaw reviews, what have you. Maybe you just have a complex question about your nonprofit that you'd like some help on. We are available for organizational development projects as well as free, chats with experts. So yeah, any sort of need that you might have, we're in it with you as a fellow nonprofit to serve and support you all. So yeah, I'd just like to thank everyone again, and I hope to see you all around. And thank you.
Thanks, everyone. It was a gaggle of fun. Appreciate it.